Hi, everyone. Uh, Welcome to week 4 of What the Dramaturg. You can see the change of scenery behind me. There might be a gas leak in the theater building. Who knows? We're going to be outside for a little bit just so we can be safe. Sarah is social distancing at her house. I am at the office / my house. So we'll see what goes on. Remember, we're playing the game, What Is That Sound? Since we're both outside, who knows what you're going to hear today? So that is a positive note. And in addition, today's episode is Falling in Love with Your GBF, written by Alex Sauer, our resident playwright. And if you like what you hear today, we are doing a workshop live for Pretty Fat Cow, which is another play that she wrote on Saturday at noon. So if you want to hear some actors read through a workshop, and if you have any comments on those plays, you can share that as well. That's the full purpose of Workshop Live. So without further ado, Sarah, what is Falling in Love with Your GBF all about?
Yeah, so Falling in Love with Your GBF follows a recent college graduate named Ella. She is living in Boston, and she's trying to kind of figure out her life after graduation, and she lives with a very eclectic group of friends. And so while she's trying to figure out her life and trying to survive and figure out what she's going to do, she's also hiding the fact that she is in love with her best friend, Adam, who just happens to be gay. So it's like we get the story of their friendship and how they became friends and how all that formed. And then we find out, what it's like being in love with your gay best friend.
So detailed there. So Falling in Love with Your Gay Best Friend has a bigger cast than some of the shows that we do these days. How did working with a larger group of people whether affect your productivity in research, or did you find yourself researching similar things for multiple people to kind of cut down on that work? So what was, I guess the question is, what was the workload like working with that many people? I think there was 8 or 10.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There were 13 individual characters. Some of them we did kind of overlap because a couple of them weren't quite as important to the narrative. But for the most part, a lot of it overlapped. We talk about, or we get a lot of narrative from Ella's sister Matisse, who is in a gay relationship. So being able to do the research on relationships that I could give to the actors in that regard was pretty much the same. So for the actor playing Adam, for the actor playing Matisse's girlfriend, wife, that was kind of the same. Otherwise, it was just a lot of similar. How do you live life in Boston? What is kind of the thing that Ella would have been doing post graduation? And then talking a lot with the actor that played Ella and figuring out how would you be friends with someone, know that they're gay, and then still work through those kind of romantic feelings for them. That was probably the most difficult, because not all of us have a gay best friend that we have fallen head over heels in love with. So it was definitely interesting, but there wasn't quite as much research that had to go into this particular show. So it was a little bit easier.
Okay, yeah. So when we were in rehearsals for Falling in Love with Your GBF, Alex was actively editing and adding new scenes to fill in plot holes and making sure things fluidly together, because we didn't have a chance to workshop that one before we did it. We kind of workshopped and rehearsed at the same time. Can you explain how, as a dramaturg, being in that environment as an active rehearsal space, active workshop, constant rewrites, how does your job fit into that?
One of the things that I'm able to do is to primarily, again, be that person that a playwright is able to reach out to for research. So if Alex at any point was struggling to figure out something specific about, you know, like Boston life or something, she could easily send me, you know, a message or a text and be like, hey, can you look into this for me? It's also, when you're working with a playwright who's currently working on a production, it ends up being, like you said, it's a lot more fluid because you are changing so many things. So being able to be kind of that second pair of eyes that reads over it, looks over it, and says, hey, this isn't really working. When you're sitting in a rehearsal space, to be like, okay, these actors seem like they're a little awkward, they're a little uncomfortable, or they don't seem to really understand what they're supposed to be doing. As a dramaturg, I'm able to step in and kind of help with that a little bit as well, as far as doing the writing stuff and saying, hey, you know, maybe you could add this, maybe you could take this part out, maybe we could maybe we could look into changing X, Y, and Z or something like that. She's very interested in learning about the show.
Yeah, she just jumped right up. So, for those of you who missed it, that's my dog Lily. She likes to be involved in everything we do. And that's Daisy in the background, if you can hear that barking. She's our little corgi. So I guess the next thing, I don't know if it's the most important question, but it's an important question, is that as some of the other shows we had already talked about, we had characters playing people they usually don't play, or they're playing characters that aren't themselves. Mm-hmm. And we talked about that for Witcher Jupiter, that it adds an extra layer of challenges to the actor. What are some activities that we did or we could do to help actors understand that other character, but also develop that mannerism in their own self for the acting?
Yeah, so I know one of the things that we did with our rehearsals was to, you kind of just force them into the situation, making sure that, of course, you have the budget for and the ability to bring on an intimacy coordinator, because that is extremely important in making sure that all of the actors are comfortable with what's happening and that they know the appropriate way to interact with each other. I know in some of our rehearsals, we had the main character, Adam, and the actor playing his boyfriend. We would have them kind of go off to the side while we were working on other parts of the show and make them practice like in a mirror, holding hands and like touching, each other's arms to kind of get them comfortable, because neither of those actors identify as being gay themselves. So it was a lot of, okay, you have to, get used to touching your partner in this sort of way. And I know a couple of times we had other actors come in and be like, okay, well, maybe you could do this, and like kind of show, this is what you would do if you were in a heterosexual relationship. Now just kind of put that into the same form when you're on the stage. So it was definitely difficult, but I think that's a really good way to do it, is kind of just have them walk through it on their own. And it's definitely, I think, easier to do it within the rehearsal space rather than being like, okay, now go practice this, at home while you're running lines, like try to practice, with another person. So definitely doing stuff like that in the rehearsal space is helpful. And like I said, having the ability to pull in an intimacy coordinator is also super important for any show that has any kind of close contact like that.
Exactly. One second. Lily, come here. Oh, hey. So anyway, the last question, because the neighbor's mowing their lawn now, if you can hear that in the background. So what would you do differently if we redid the production? What would you focus on that you didn't get to focus on the first time? What would you focus more on that we talked about the first time, just to make it more authentic?
I definitely would take the chance to do more one-on-one with the actors as a whole, because this was only like the second production that we had put on, and we were all doing it kind of at the beginning of a semester, we were all a little bit busy, so I wasn't able to do as much one-on-one with them as I would have liked as a dramaturg. So I think that's definitely something that I would try to do more, is make it to more of the rehearsals, be able to come through when they were doing read-throughs and things like that. As far as focusing on something specific, I think there are a couple of scenes between Matisse and Ella where they're kind of talking about Ella's feelings and about, you know, what she should do. And I really would have liked to been able to sit down with our actors and kind of talk through that. Talk through, you know, how would you, Matisse, as someone in the LGBT community, talk to your sister about how she should handle her feelings, or how she should handle the conversation talking to Adam about how she feels and stuff like that. I would have really liked to have been able to sit down and have a better conversation with them, and maybe do more with the actors playing Adam and his boyfriend, getting a little more involved with them, talking a little bit more about how to do actions that make their relationship seem a little bit more realistic and a little bit more authentic. Hello, puppy.
It sounds very good. Daisy wanted to say hi. So she is in this video now. So, yeah, that's very good. So I think next week we're talking about the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee.
Yay!
So I hope you're prepared for that one.
Yes, one of my favorite shows.
And all of you at home, I hope that you tune in next week when we're hopefully inside, because there's no threat of impending gas in my house.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for tuning in to week 4 of What the Dramaturg, and I hope you enjoyed.